If you visit a high-security city zoo on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, you will eventually stumble upon a horrifying spectacle. You will see a polar bear walking in precise, obsessive circles on a flat slab of gray concrete. You will see a primate sitting in the corner, staring blankly at a tiled wall, pulling out its own, hair strand by strand. You will see big cats pacing back and forth along the iron bars of their enclosure, repeating the exact same geometric path 500 times a day. Zoologists have an official medical term for this tragic psychological condition. They call it zoochosis. Zoochosis is a profound neurological mental breakdown that occurs when an animal is removed from its complex, natural evolutionary habitat and placed inside a sterile, hyperstructured, unnatural environment. The animal's brain, fine-tuned by millions of years of wilderness survival, simply collapses under the weight of artificial confinement. It manifests as repetitive pacing, self-mutilation, chronic apathy, panic attacks, and severe depression. We look through the glass at these poor creatures, shake our heads in sympathy, and feel guilty for paying $12 to witness their suffering. Then we step out of the zoo gates, walk down a concrete sidewalk, take a subterranean metal train packed with screaming strangers, ascend 30 floors inside a glass box, and sit in a 4-yard plastic cubicle for 9 hours staring at a glowing spreadsheet. And we wonder why we need 6 different psychiatric medications just to make it through the week. Welcome to the largest open-air megazoo in human history. The modern metropolis. We love to tell ourselves that human beings are fundamentally different from the animals in the cages. We tell ourselves that we built these giant concrete cities out of free choice, intelligence, and a desire for social progress. We call our skylines proof of human triumph over nature. But biologically speaking, your brain does not care about your high-speed internet, your gourmet coffee shops, or your modern subway system. Your central nervous system is still operating on the exact same evolutionary hardware that was sculpted during the Pleistocene epoch. For over 200,000 years, the human animal evolved to live in tiny, tight-knit, nomadic tribes of roughly 150 individuals. You were designed to walk on soft earth, navigate dense green forest, track seasonal weather patterns, gaze at endless night skies, and build deep, trusting relationships with a small group of people you knew by name for your entire life. You were biologically hardwired for space, natural light, physical movement, and tight social bonds. And then, in a cosmic blink of an eye, industrial capitalism took that fragile biological creature, stripped away its natural territory, and shoved 8 million of them into a single congested grid of concrete, glass, and steel. The result is exactly what any competent evolutionary biologist would predict: human zoochosis. We are living inside an artificial habitat that violates almost every single biological baseline our species requires to stay sane. Look at how a modern city treats your visual system alone. For thousands of years, your eyes were built to scan natural landscapes filled with organic shapes, soft curves, rich shades of green, and infinite depth of field. Natural environments lower your heart rate and cause your brain to release calming neurotransmitters. A modern city, by contrast, is a visual assault of sharp 90-degree angles, flat gray concrete walls, flashing digital advertisements, and artificial fluorescent light. Neuroscientists have discovered that when the human eye is forced to look at flat, repetitive, geometric, urban structures, the visual cortex has to work significantly harder to process the information. It triggers a continuous, low-grade stress response in the amygdala. You are not just looking at an ugly concrete building. Your primitive brain is interpreting that unnatural, lifeless structure as a threat, and that is just the visual friction. Consider the noise pollution of the modern human cage. You live in an environment surrounded by the constant, low-frequency hum of heavy traffic, screaming sirens, industrial air conditioners, and construction drills. You might think you have learned to ignore these background sounds, but your subconscious ears never sleep. Your ancient evolutionary biology hears the roar of a jet engine or the screech of subway brakes and instantly registers it as a massive, lethal predator approaching at high speed. Your adrenal glands pump small doses of cortisol and adrenaline into your bloodstream 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You spend your entire urban life trapped in a state of hypervigilance. You are an animal in a constant state of mild physiological panic, wondering why you feel chronically exhausted even when you have done nothing physical all day. We built a world that keeps our biological stress response permanently switched on, and then we sell subscription services to help us cope with the damage. We are pacing back and forth along the iron bars of our concrete enclosures, pulling out our hair, staring at the tiled walls of our tiny studio apartments, pretending that this is normal, because acknowledging the truth would mean admitting that the hypermodern city is not a testament to human civilization. It is a factory designed to keep a captured population manageable. To truly grasp the psychological machinery of the human zoo, we have to look at how modern urban density completely dismantles your brain's social architecture. In evolutionary anthropology, there's a famous concept known as Dunbar's number. It states that the human brain is neurobiologically incapable of maintaining stable, meaningful social relationships with more than roughly 150 people. That is the size of the village your biology was built to comprehend. When you live in a traditional community of that size, every face you see is familiar. Every person has a name, a history, and a clear role within the tribe. You feel a deep sense of social safety, accountability, and belonging. Anonymity simply does not exist. Now, look at what happens when you cram 8 million human beings into a single metropolitan area. On your daily morning commute, you pass more individual human beings in 20 minutes than your prehistoric ancestors encountered in their entire lifetimes. You sit on a crowded train, shoulder to shoulder with 50 complete strangers, feeling their body heat and breathing their air while staring intently at your phone screen to avoid making eye contact. Your primitive brain experiences this as a terrifying biological anomaly. In nature, being surrounded by a massive crowd of individuals who do not know your name, do not care about your well-being, and share no social bonds with you is a signal of extreme danger. It means you have been captured by a hostile enemy tribe. To protect you from emotional overload, your brain deploys a psychological defense mechanism called urban apathy or civic inattention. You train yourself to treat other human beings like physical obstacles. You stop looking people in the eye. You ignore the person weeping on the bench. You walk past the elderly man struggling with his groceries. You build a thick psychological wall around yourself just to survive the crushing sensory overload of the crowd. We live in cities surrounded by millions of people, yet we are suffering from an unprecedented epidemic of profound, crushing isolation. You are a social animal trapped in a hyper-dense wilderness of ghosts, and this social isolation is not a bug of modern urban design. It is an extraordinary feature for corporate capitalism. When people live in tight-knit, self-reliant communities where neighbors help each other, share tools, cook together, and watch out for each other's children, they buy significantly less stuff. They do not need commercial entertainment to feel fulfilled because they have human connection. They do not need to purchase endless services because their community provides a social safety net. Atomized, lonely, alienated individuals, on the other hand, are the most profitable demographic on Earth. When you have no community to turn to, you buy products to fill the void. You buy food delivery apps because you are too emotionally drained to cook. You buy alcohol, video games, and streaming subscriptions to numb the quiet despair of your empty apartment. You buy fast fashion and luxury goods to signal status to strangers who will never care who you are. The human zoo isolates you, starves you of authentic biological connection, and then sells you consumer products as a temporary, artificial substitute. And it gets even worse when you look at how urban space is physically controlled. Think about how a zookeeper designs a cage for an animal. The primary goal is not to make the animal happy. The goal is to make the animal easy to monitor, easy to feed, easy to clean up after, and completely incapable of escaping or causing trouble. Modern cities are designed around the exact same principles of architectural control. Notice how modern public spaces are systematically removing places where humans can simply exist without spending money. Benches are divided with steel armrests to prevent people from lying down. Plazas are stripped of trees and shade to keep crowds from lingering too long. Public restrooms are locked or demolished entirely. Every square inch of the modern city is engineered to force you into a state of continuous economic motion. You are allowed to walk to your job. You are allowed to sit in a restaurant and pay for food. You are allowed to shop in a retail store. But the moment you try to simply sit, relax, gather with friends, or exist in public space without exchanging currency, the architecture itself becomes hostile. You are treated like a stray animal that has wandered onto private property. They built a living environment where survival requires constant financial transactions, where nature is replaced by concrete, and where human connection is replaced by transactional services. We traded our wild biological freedom for a tiny, climate-controlled cage with high-speed Wi-Fi. And we were taught to call it progress. So how do we break out of the human zoo when the concrete walls surround us for thousands of miles? The first step is recognizing that your anxiety, your burnout, and your chronic fatigue are not personal character flaws. You do not have a defective brain. You do not suffer from a lack of personal willpower. Your mind and body are reacting with complete biological sanity to an utterly insane, unnatural environment. Stop blaming yourself for feeling exhausted in a world designed to drain your nervous system. Once you understand that you are an evolutionary wild animal living in captivity, you can start building tiny biological oases inside your daily routine. You have to actively fight to rewild your biology. Seek out natural light every single morning. Spend time in green spaces, forests, and parks, even if it means waking up early to find a quiet corner of a city garden before the crowds arrive. Science shows that spending just 20 minutes surrounded by real trees, soil, and living plants significantly drops your salivary cortisol levels and resets your brain's baseline stress response. Reclaim tactile physical reality. Put your hands in real soil. Touch natural wood and rough stone instead of smooth glass screens. Walk barefoot on real grass whenever you get the chance. Force your eyes to break away from short-distance focal points. Look at distant horizons, skylines, and clouds to give your visual cortex a chance to relax from the oppressive geometry of square rooms. And most importantly, reject the forced social isolation of the megacity. Build your own tribe. Seek out real, deep, face-to-face human connections that do not depend on screens, apps, or commercial transactions. Talk to your neighbors. Build small, local networks of mutual support. Share meals, share tools, and look out for the people around you. When you build strong local human bonds, you reduce your dependence on the corporate infrastructure that relies on your loneliness to make a profit. We might not be able to tear down every concrete skyscraper or demolish every highway overnight, but we can stop internalizing the cage. We can stop viewing ourselves as helpless urban workers whose only purpose is to commute, consume, and produce quarterly economic data for a landlord or a holding company. You are not an economic unit designed to live in a gray filing cabinet. You are a biological wonder born from millions of years of natural evolution with a heart built for wild freedom, human warmth, and deep community. The next time you walk down a crowded, noisy city street surrounded by gray concrete and flashing advertisements, take a deep breath. Look past the steel bars of the urban zoo, step off the pavement, find a patch of green earth, and remember who you actually are.